In today's video, we're going to explore some NHL trade rumors involving the Minnesota Wild and the Ottawa Senators. Could we see a huge trade involving Kevin Fiala going to Ottawa this offseason? Plus, the Lightning sweep the Panthers. We have a fine, some signings, some more updates on the coaching carousel, and an NHL veteran has announced his retirement. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL trade rumors and some news to talk about here today. First up, we got some news earlier that longtime NHL veteran Frans Nielsen, longtime Red Wing, played on a few other teams as well, has announced his retirement from professional hockey. He was playing over at the World Championships over in Europe. We did find out that this was going to be the end of pro hockey for Nielsen, so we didn't expect him to play in the NHL any longer, but it is confirmed now that his career has come to an end, so we certainly want to wish him the best in retirement. He certainly had a pretty decent NHL career. Now, of course, in last night's NHL action, we saw the Lightning sweep the Panthers. The Panthers are done with a 2-0 loss to the Lightning last night. Once again, in a game series clinching scenario, Andrei Vasilevskiy pitches a shutout. This seems to be what he does when they're having an opportunity to close out a series. Vasilevskiy does not lose a majority of the time, gets a shutout. He is really quickly in his, he's becoming a legend really early in his career. Like, he's going to be right up there with the all-time greats in goaltending. You could make an argument that he's already done enough to likely be in the Hall of Fame and be down as one of the greats. So the only thing he's missing from getting all those things is the longevity, but still, the fact that he's got multiple Stanley Cups to his name, working on trying to get a third. It was a Conn Smythe winner, Vezina winner. The guy is just absolutely amazing and comes up clutch when it matters most. So Vasilevskiy was just shutting him down. Got a 49-shot shutout last night. Florida scored 3 goals in this entire series, which is certainly a major, major disappointment. The Panthers were the most offensive team in the NHL this year, and they could not score at all against the Lightning. It's just that simple. The top guns in the Panthers couldn't get the job done. And as Coach Andrew Brunette said, I think it was after game 2 or 3, he just said the Lightning have more will than us. They're willing their way to win. You see all the players on the Lightning, not just your bottom 6, not just your third pair D, everybody dropping to block shots, making sacrifices, and just taking that extra step, that extra effort to make sure they win their battles and that they get that W at the end of the night. And the Panther players were doing their best, but they certainly weren't doing as much, and that was a big part of the difference. So part of being successful in the playoffs is you do need to learn how to win. It's pretty obvious in that front, and it's certainly something the Panthers are still learning here. You have to wonder what's going to come from this for the Florida Panthers, President's Trophy winners. They did win a round, so it's not like it was a complete bust, but still, it's a successful season as they were, and considering the acquisitions they made and the draft capital they gave up doing it, I think they expected more than this. Like, at this point, they don't have a first-round pick for the next 3 drafts between Ben Sherratt, Claude Giroux, and before that for Sam Reinhart. I mean, there wasn't all deadline deals, but 2 out of the 3 were. They don't have a first-round pick for 3 years. They've only got, I think, 2 or 3 picks inside the first 3 rounds in the next 3 years. They're pretty low on draft capital right now, so they're not going to be adding really much of anything of prospects to their organization over the next few years. And even though a lot of their key players are relatively young, it'd be nice to have some up-and-coming players to mix in on some ELCs to kind of help with the salary cap situation. We know Andrew Brunette, as much as he did a great job in the regular season, he's technically still an interim coach, and he's a finalist for the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year as well. So I think most people, myself included, thought going into the playoffs that he would be a slam dunk to get the interim tag taken off and get an extension for a few years at least as a head coach. Now I think it's still possible, but I do have a little bit of doubt with with Bill Zito and ownership there. How are they going to react? That's the big question. I mean, it's not like a situation. I've seen a lot of Leaf fans already saying, "Oh, Florida lost to Tampa. They need to make a big move," because everybody says the Leafs need to make a big move. Not necessarily. I mean, the Leafs have been at this for 5-6 years. This is not the same scenario for Florida. However, it's still disappointing, and with disappointment usually does come some change. I don't know that we're going to see anything super drastic out of Florida. There's definitely going to be some tinkering for cap purposes at least, but it will be interesting to see what kind of reaction we do get from Florida's management. Now, the Avalanche won against the Blues to take a 3-0 series lead against the St. Louis Blues. Nazem Kadri, defying the haters, I guess you could say, comes up clutch with a hat trick last night. Of course, we know that Kadri had faced a lot of hate from Blues fans and getting a lot of threats, including racially motivated threats, death threats, harmful threats, etc. Over the course after the incident where he ran into the defenseman Kelly Rosen and they crashed into Bennington. Regardless of what Kadri did or did not do, intentionally, not intentionally, that is way over the line. His wife posted a thing on Instagram with a snapshot of a lot of the direct messages that they were receiving, and it was insanely hateful, absolutely disgusting, and it has been shared around through social media. I know somebody, I think it was one of the Hockey News guys, had shared the post from Instagram, and somebody had contacted them saying, my brother is one of these people, can you please take it down? He was drunk when he sent this, he's having regrets. But that's what happens, right? You got to be prepared for the consequences. I mean, you shouldn't be saying those things, and if people are that full of hate, like, it really makes you wonder, maybe they should be seeking some kind of help, to be honest, because that's just absolutely disgusting. Nobody deserves that. You can say what you want about Kadri as a hockey player. Say you don't like his style. Say he's a dirty hockey player. You don't have to attack him personally. Completely different set of circumstances and story there. That is really, and like I said, people are still kind of disappointed here from the fact that, the Craig Berube yesterday, when asked about it before the game, said no comment about the hate that Kadri was receiving. It could really be that difficult to say that I don't like the play on the ice, but I condemn hateful and racial messages, or like something. It's very disappointing in the Blues, and hopefully we get something from that, but we'll see. Now, that game last night was a little bit nasty. Certainly Kadri was a big target. You could see numerous times they're trying to get him to cross the line, because we know Kadri's got a past in the playoffs, especially where he's lost his temper, done something stupid, got suspended, hurt his team, hurt himself, put himself out, and they're trying to see if he'll do it, and he's got himself in control now, or at least he has so far, and it's not happening. And last night, David Perron was fined $5,000 for cross-checking, because they did, there was a scrum over by the boards where, he did cross-check him pretty good. But there was also a clip that I've seen going through social media. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but after one of Kadri's goals, Perron is coming back onto the play. So he looked like he was probably coming off the bench on a change, would be my assumption. And he's got his elbow up. Just as Kadri starts to celebrate the goal, he's trying to elbow him in the head. And Kadri sees him at the last second and kind of dodges him and misses. So nothing really came from it. Nothing was really ever mentioned. It was a little bit discreet, but when you watch the video, you can see 100% that he was trying to attack him. So really, that is intent to injure and should be something, but he gets fined for the other cross-check. Anyways, it's getting a little bit nuts. I think St. Louis needs to stop focusing on Kadri and focus on trying to win games and trying to score goals, because they're going to be doomed here otherwise. They're already down 3-1. It's tough enough. The odds of beating the Avalanche 3 straight games are, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because it's not, but it's going to be pretty darn difficult, and they need to focus here on what they need to do. Now, there is a couple signings today as well. The Flyers have extended Linus Sandin for a year, $750,000. Only played one HL game with the Flyers this year, but he did put up 20 points in 36 games in the American Hockey League. He was originally drafted a year ago as an undrafted. He was originally signed by the Flyers a year ago as an undrafted free agent. And we also saw the Arizona Coyotes announcing today that they've signed goaltender Ivan Prosvetov to a 1-year extension as well. He's mostly played for the AHL affiliate in Tucson for the Roadrunners, so they're going to keep him around here as well. Now, when it comes to the coaching carousel, we did get confirmation today from NHL reporter, insider, analyst, so I guess he wears many hats here, Mr. Breaking News with the videos on Twitter, Kevin Weeks, has confirmed that John Tortorella is indeed a candidate for the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, it was mentioned before that there was some belief that he was, and Weeks confirmed it today. So Not to say that he's definitely the front runner or anything. There is belief they're still talking to Barry Trotz, and I would imagine there's others too. But to me, Tortorella would be a good potential choice in Philly for the style of play that they like to go with and everything. To me, that makes a lot of sense. So we'll see where that goes. Still no word on Barry Trotz. I know there was some local Winnipeg media, some people from, I think, a couple different podcasts, saying they had sources that Barry Trotz was going to be confirmed as the Winnipeg Jets head coach today. That's not happened, at least as of the recording of this video, and it's getting later in the day, so I'm suspecting it's probably not coming. I know Elliotte Friedman had indicated that he hadn't heard anything that it was a done deal, that it was a case of the Jets likely making him an offer, and they're waiting to hear back, because he's probably waiting to see what other teams have to say and make a decision. So we'll see where that goes, but no confirmation on Trotz as of right now. We also did get confirmation that the Calgary Flames are indeed moving their American Hockey League team starting next year. So right now it's in Stockton, California. That team will be moving to Calgary itself and will play in the same building of the NHL Flames. So the building that they have, of course, the Saddle Dome, will now house 3 different teams. Of course, the Flames, along with their AHL affiliate, and the Calgary Hitmen of the Western Hockey League also play their home games there as well. So there's going to be plenty of action in Calgary hockey, I would imagine, too. This is a good move overall. They'll have their prospects right in their back door, allow them to work with a lot of different staff, cuts down on travel, obviously, and makes call-ups a lot easier, etc. So as we've seen, there's a trend here of AHL affiliate teams being moved closer and closer to where the NHL teams are located. Once upon a time, there would be times when they would be quite a distance apart, and it made calling out players incredibly challenging, especially when teams would be on road trips, etc. So we'll see. Now, the big trade talk of the day that we want to look at here, could we see a potential significant trade between the Minnesota Wild and the Ottawa Senators? Now, Kevin Fiala to Ottawa has been in the rumor mill for several months. This started back before even the end of the regular season. There was a lot of talk that the Senators and Wild were scouting each other. They were seen at each other's games quite a bit, and it was believed that they were working on a trade that would likely not come till the offseason for Fiala. So we don't know the full parameters that might have been discussed, but many believe that this is something that could actually happen. We did get confirmation from Friedman, as other reporters have mentioned it as well, that the Senators have made it known that they are open to trading their first-round pick this year, which is at number 7 overall. And there's some talk that maybe that could be included to acquire a top 6 forward like Kevin Fiala. Now, of course, there's also an Athletic article from Ian Mendez just a few days ago exploring this possibility. Of course, we know that the Minnesota Wild are facing a significant cap crunch going into next year with the buyouts for Parise and Suter kicking into high gear here. They're only going to have about $8 million available in space, and they need to sign or trade Fiala. Plus, they have other players that need to be looked after as well, including a second goaltender, because obviously Marc-Andre Fleury's on an expiring contract, so he's done. There's interest to bring him back, but I'm not really sure how that's going to be possible. And then, of course, they have Talbot already, so goaltending will be challenging for them. And obviously, any kind of trade involving Fiala is going to probably bring back multiple pieces. Now, one of the trades that's referenced in the article, it's a potential template, if you will, would be the Sam Reinhart trade between the Buffalo Sabres and the Florida Panthers that happened last offseason. Sam Reinhart and Kevin Fiala are similar age, and they've had similar production, at least that's close enough in the last number of years that you could say that their trade value is comparable. Reinhart was making just a little over $5 million on the contract that was expiring with the Sabres. Fiala's at 5.1 with Minnesota. Reinhart ended up signing a 3-year contract with the Panthers at 6.5. Now, instead of signing long-term, they did a 3-year deal. They ended up saying that worked best for both sides. I guess they're willing to consider 3 years of Reinhart, and see where things go. They can talk extension after 2 years, but it's difficult to say what that's going to mean for their overall cap situation and whatnot. Of course, also included in that trade was a goalie prospect in Devin Levi. So the Florida Panthers sent a first-round pick in Levi to the Sabres in exchange for Reinhart. So the author here, Ian Mendez, counters, well, perhaps the Senators could include a goaltender. They have enough of them on NHL contracts for next year. They have Matt Murray, who's been inconsistent and disappointing. They have Anton Forsberg, who became the de facto starter, got a 3-year extension. And they have Philip Gustafsson, who's on for another year on a one-way contract as well. So they're going to risk losing him on waivers if he's on the NHL, or if they wanted to demote him off the NHL roster, I should say. And I guess the author here, Ian Mendez, is suggesting maybe Gustafsson be included. Now, he did consult with Minnesota Wild writer Michael Russo, asking his opinion on the trade details. He said, if the Senators offer that first-round pick, number 7, straight up for Fiala, is that going to be enough for Minnesota? And he said he didn't think so. He thought it was going to take a little bit more, so probably that pick and a prospect. So clearly where they need a backup goalie next year. And they do have Jesper Wallstedt in their system too, so they're not going to want to probably commit to anything too long a term here. But still, they could use another NHL caliber goaltender that's not going to cost them too much given their cap situation. So he suggested, that pick and a prospect. So Ian Mendez counters, well, maybe they could have one of our prospect goalies. And Philip Gustafsson, who does have some NHL experience, he's on a one-way deal and could possibly be their backup goalie next year. So when he asked the possibility of Fiala for the first-round pick at number 7 and Gustafsson, it seemed to be not necessarily a slam dunk to get done, but it certainly would be a lot closer. Now, the Senators do have a variety of other prospects they could consider including as well. But that was the proposed trade here in the article. Now, the other thing you got to think about as well from the Ottawa perspective is, sure, Fiala is still relatively young, talented top 6 forward, could come in because they have basically 4 to 5 pieces for their top 6. They really could benefit from one more. Ideally, they need a winger to play with Timmy Stützle. That way they can keep Batherson, Tkachuk, and Norris as your top line. Put a winger with Stützle, like a Fiala, for example. And then they also have Matthew Joseph, who came over from Tampa for Nick Paul, who's been getting a lot of top 6 time. At least he was before he got hurt at the end of the year. He should be able to hopefully continue playing at that. You also have Connor Brown. Those two can kind of maybe be interchangeable as well. So, but from a money perspective, you got to do Josh Norris's contract this year. He was on pace for almost 40 goals. So he's going to be getting a big ticket. You've got Tkachuk signed. You get Batherson signed. You get Shabbat signed. You need to sign Joseph. And then, of course, like I said, the Norris contract. You're going to have Jake Sanderson coming due in a year or two. You got Stützle coming up. They have to manage their cap. There's lots of space now, but they have some big contracts to fill here over the next 12 to 24 months. So they can't put themselves in a corner so that they can't keep everybody that they really want to at this point, because it's going to start to get challenging. That's what happens when you start coming into the rebuild and all these kids start getting raises and deserve to be paid more. Then you're going to kind of get stuck, right? So if they end up paying Fiala like $8 million on a long-term deal, he could be the highest paid player right off the bat, and that could really affect their other younger players over the next year or two. So you do have to be cautious of that, and I'm not sure that's really wise. Now, if they come to terms on an agreement more similar to the Reinhardt deal, and they do a 3 or 4 year deal at maybe 6.5, that's a little bit more reasonable. But even then, depending on this pick, I'd hate to see them move a first rounder and only get a few years of Fiala and then really regret that pick, right? So you just don't know. So I'm not completely sold on the idea that Fiala is the ideal player that the Senators should target. Now, there's also been some talk that top 6 forward acquisition could be Claude Giroux in free agency. But of course, Giroux did not achieve his goal this year, getting a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. And there was a lot of people that believed that if he got his Stanley Cup, that it would increase the odds he would want to go home and play for his hometown Senators for a few years to finish up his career. That still might be the case. They are a young, exciting team, but are certainly a long ways from contending for a cup. So, is he going to want to do that? I honestly don't know. And I honestly don't know if he could really want to, what kind of term or money he's looking at either, right? So it's difficult to say, but at least they're not giving up assets. They could have Giroux on the books for a few years, still have that number 7 pick. It would be the easier way to go. I'm just not completely sold on moving the number 7 pick and a goalie or another prospect for Fiala. He's a great player. I just don't know that he's the perfect player for them. So I'd like to know what everybody thinks of this trade, especially if you're an Ottawa or Minnesota fan, for sure. Fiala's a young, exciting player, But I don't know. I mean, another team that could be very, very interested here is New Jersey or the LA Kings. I would look to them to maybe be in on the Fiala sweepstakes as well. They've got some pretty exciting prospects and picks that could be also in play. So time will tell. Ottawa is expected to make a move. I know they're going to consider trading this pick. I just think they need to tread carefully here. I'm just not entirely sold, at least not right now, that this is the deal. If they were doing the pick for Fiala straight up, maybe, but now we're throwing in other assets. I just don't know, if it's really worth it. Do they keep the pick or do they target a different player? Maybe get a top pair defenseman to go with Shabbat. Maybe they improve the back end of that pick instead. Or do they just keep the pick and maybe attempt to get a guy in free agency who can complement their top six as well? Not sure. Kind of conflicted. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis in all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.